Ahoy, friends. Welcome back to the Down to Get Weird podcast. The guest today is none other than myself. You know, if I want to get more podcasts out, then I'm going to have to do some solo ones because it's been kind of hard to get people on the podcast, and that's understandable. You know, we live in some strange times these days where in the last, few months, I've heard that speech is violence, and then I've also heard that silence is violence. So I don't really know where that puts you at. So I know there's some people who come on here or who would want to come on here, but maybe don't think they can speak their opinions on things. And hey, that makes sense. I get it. I can't really get fired from anything, so I'm okay with it. But so I'm doing this one solo, and we'll just see how it goes. I think I'm going to prefer having guests, but, I'm just going to get this one out. I got a topic today, and the topic is going to be, what's it like to internationally travel during the coronavirus pandemic? And this isn't too crazy of travel. I just went to Mexico, so I got the opportunity to spend 24 days in Mexico. And here's just kind of a little rundown. I've had some people since when I was there and since I've been back be really curious and have all these questions about like what's going on and what it's like essentially. So thought I'd just do a little podcast, little solo podcast on that and just kind of give my thoughts and my experience and see how people feel about it. With that being said, also if you guys know of any people who would want to be a guest on this bad boy and they got something interesting to talk about, not just like what their favorite soups are, then send them my way. I would love to have more guests. I think everyone has something interesting to talk about or something weird or something, some weird conspiracy or thought that they have, so I would love to dig into that. But all right, let's get to this. Beginning of the trip. So it all starts, I went up the night before. My flight was at 7:05 a.m. A little early flight out of Omaha, Nebraska. Went to my buddy Matt Lena's house, which I didn't know how far away his house was from the airport. So we kind of had like a rough 6:10 leave time from his house because one, I have TSA pre-check, so I can skip the line anyways. And two, I just kind of assumed that nobody's really traveling right now. So stayed the night at his house. I wake up at like 6:45 and just kind of chilling, making sure I got my stuff. He comes out right around then, starts making some coffee. He's a bit of a coffee sommelier, and we get to chatting, drinking some coffee. Next thing we know, it's 6:10. He's like, "Oh, we should probably like be gone. Like we should probably be leaving." So got to round up all my stuff. It's about 6:15 by the time we get left his house. That gives me 55 minutes before this flight's in the air. So I'm thinking he lives like 15 minutes from the airport. That wasn't true. I guess I didn't really check it. Omaha's a little bit bigger than I was maybe expecting. And I start panicking as we're getting close. I'm like, okay, it's like 6:30 and we're still not there. And we arrive at the airport as I'm getting out of the car. It's 6:35, 30 minutes before this flight is in the air. They start boarding 45 minutes before. So I'm 15 minutes late from the boarding process from what is normal. So I go in, I'm flying Southwest. I run up there, I give him my bag, and he's like, hey, it's a late check, which just means that if it doesn't make it, then I have to pay to get it to me. It's not the company's fault. And he's like, if you don't make the flight, then your bag won't make the flight. If you do make the flight, then who knows if your bag will make the flight or not. So I'm like, all right, sweet. Gives me my ticket. I run up, go through TSA pre-check. There's no one in the TSA pre-check line, and there's nobody in the regular line. But I still go TSA pre-check because they don't make you take shoes off. They don't make you do all that. I see my gate. It's like right as you get out of that. And as I'm like going through, they haven't even started boarding yet. And so I'm like, well, I'm obviously going to make it. Hopefully my bag makes it. I was pretty impressed. It seemed, I wouldn't say the airport was full, but my flight seemed pretty full. Southwest is doing open middle seats through like October or something. So at the very most, it's 66% capacity. And from the 66% capacity, it was probably like 85, 90% full. So pretty good. Get to Denver. Denver's packed. Now, a lot of the restaurants are closed. So there's like, I would say maybe half of the businesses that are in the airport are closed. So everything else is pretty packed. I think the line at McDonald's was like 10 people long or something. So the businesses that are open are doing pretty good. So Denver's looking packed. When I got to my gate for the Cancun flight, the flight to St. Louis before me had 4 people on it. So obviously not every flight is totally packed, especially probably the main ones where you have those big hubs that are going back and forth where every airline flies it. A lot of those are probably somewhat struggling. But get on my flight to Cancun, hoping my bag made it. Still don't know. Obviously not going to know until I get there. And that flight was probably, of the 66%, it was probably 80% full, maybe 85. So I was like, oh, maybe there's going to be a lot going on in Mexico. At this point, I have no idea. I don't know anyone who lives in that part of Mexico. I have no connections down there at this point, so not sure what to expect. Get to Cancun, go to get my bag, carousels going around, and they kind of did it in like 2 shifts where like one unloading of bags, not in there. The second unloading of bags, I'm like, well, not quite yet. I see the same bags like going around and around. I'm like, not feeling great about it. All the bags are gone. And I'm like, well, now I go to the desk and just tell them I lost my bag. And now, luckily, I have a credit card that if my bag is lost, I get like a certain amount of money every day that it's lost. It's like travel insurance credit card, Chase Sapphire Reserve. Make sure you get it. And if you do, I'll give you a code or whatever it is, and I can get a little something, you know. But after that, I'm like getting up, about to go to the thing, and I hear like them chuck another bag on, and my bag is the last one that comes out. And so luckily, I didn't have to go through that. I go through the normal stuff you got to get through. I've never been stopped at customs, or in the sense of like, you know, where they pull you over and check your bag. Never happened to me once. I have been to 50 countries and they do it at all of them. And I've been to a lot of those countries multiple times. Never had it happen once. Never has someone checked my bag, which is interesting because I see like a lot of times it's just random and they'll just pull one person to the side. And I feel like I look like a slightly unsavory character maybe. Never once happened. So I guess if you don't want your bag getting checked, look like a skater guy or something. I don't know. But I walk out, and that's like the first hint I get of things are a little different. I've flown to Cancun before. They always have like the people lined up to like take you wherever you're going, because that's the only main airport in that area outside of Cozumel, and Cozumel's an island. So if you're going to Playa, if you're going to Tulum, if you're going to Merida, if you're going to, maybe Merida has an airport, but if you're going to Bacalar, if you're going to any of those places, then this is your hub. So there's just people lined up, and they just start like chirping at you in the sense of like asking you where you're going. I'll give you a ride. We'll give you like taxis. You want a shuttle? Do you want whatever it is? I know that the cheapest way to do it is through the ADO bus. It's like $9 to get to Playa, which is super cheap. And so I just go straight to the ADO station, get my ticket. It's like an hour and a half till that takes off. But I could tell there, even though when I had my bus ticket, people were still, and this is annoying and it's funny too, is that they're still like, oh, I'll give you a taxi. I'm like, yeah, no, I have a bus ticket. And they're like, yeah, but I can get you there faster. And I'm like, yeah, and it's also 4 or 5 times the price. So your boy's all right. Because I'm poor. So I could kind of tell there, like it wasn't like that last time. Like obviously people are like taxis and stuff, but I could tell there's a little more desperation in the air. I get to the bus thing, I just chill out, wait. Once I get to Playa, so the ADO bus station in Playa is a tourist bus station. is like right in the thick of it. It's right on Fifth Avenue, which is the same. It's like Bourbon Street in New Orleans, or it's like 6th Street in Austin. It's the main vein for tourism where everybody's at. So that bus station walks right out to that. And as soon as I like turn the corner, my hostel is it's not even a block. It's like a block away. I can tell right away people are a bit more desperate. One, the streets were pretty deserted at that time. And everyone's like standing, they're not standing in their business. They're standing like 10, 15 feet out of their business and talking to every single person that walks by. And I'm like tired carrying my bag, and they're trying to offer me like jewelry and tequila shots. And then of course the occasional drug dealer. And I just get to my hostel. I'm like, thanks guys, but no thanks. I've been here, but I've done the, I can turn people down. You have to do that, especially in Southeast Asia, they're everywhere. And they're just trying to sell you, you're a walking ATM. And that's the thing that people don't realize. I remember being in Europe with my family, and they're Midwest people. They're from Nebraska. They're super nice, not rude. You know, they don't want to offend anybody. And they would talk to every single person that talks to them. And I'm just like, guys, you kind of have to learn to be a jerk, because you got to think of it as you're walking money to them. And without that, they could care less about you. So if you don't give them money, then they could care less if you die. So you got to treat it like that. Like, well, I'm a walking ATM. Well, you're a annoying pair of cheap sunglasses. So if I need them, I'll come, but I don't. So you kind of just got to ignore them and get to my hostel, and I check in. So I booked a 20-bed dorm just because it was the cheapest thing. And they give me a 10-bed dorm room. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because they said, oh, it's like a 10-bed dorm. And I'm like, okay, but that probably means maybe there's not as many people. I check in, no one's in the dorm. First 2 days, there's nobody in the hostel, essentially. Like, I think there's some people maybe in private rooms, but there was nobody in my dorm. A few days later, some guys from Philly check in, and it was cool, but I went down to like the hostel bar. I was just like working on my computer, and they had a pool there. It's a ghost town. There's nobody there. I see some people walking in and out of rooms, like couples and stuff that probably just have private rooms, but nobody was congregating. There was no vibe to it whatsoever. And this hostel was really nice. It was called Selena. It's a nice hostel. It might be like I think it's like top 3 biggest hostel chains in the world. They have locations all over Central, South America, Europe, US, Canada, Mexico. And they have like things going on every night. And so like I felt like after I kind of got the vibe like, oh no, there's no backpackers, I felt bad because they have to like write like, oh, tonight's event is this, or like we're having a pool party. And I'm like, it's literally just me staying there. And so it's kind of weird. I had some work to get done anyways. So first few days, I'm just working on that, going out, grabbing tacos, coming back, just chilling. That's kind of what I like to do. I can't do the short-term vacation. Like you got a week and then you just kind of grind every day. That just wears me out. It's not my style. So kind of do that. Then got to go pick up some friends in Cozumel that were flying in. Head over on the ferry to Cozumel. I get in line. They're like they're like really social distancing. So the one thing, I mean, I'll get to this a little bit later, but it's like they got everything marked and they're trying to keep people apart, making sure you have your mask. So this was the first time I noticed that you had to have your mask on. Before that, I hadn't worn a mask at all since I'd been there for those 2 days, but I wasn't going anywhere. I was just in the hostel. I was just getting food, and that was it. I didn't go explore. I just kind of chilled. So get to the ferry. They're like, you got to have your mask. There's police everywhere. I sit down, about to get on the ferry, and they have drug dogs walking around. And I was like, ooh, here we go. Let's go. Let's find someone, and let's get them. Sitting down, a dude next to me, like, I want to say maybe like 10 feet sitting next to me because we have to be distancing. 10 feet, dog stops, getting in his bag, like sniffing his bag, and the police check it. Boom, pull out a baggie. He's gonzy. I don't know. I think he was a local in the sense of he was a Mexican citizen. But they took him out. Don't know what happened to him. God bless. Hope he's doing well. But I was like, dang. So they're cracking down. It's funny because the police, you can just pay him off. Now that's probably what he did. He probably bribed him and got away. I'm pretty sure that's the way things run down there. But thought that was pretty interesting. Get on the ferry, and they're like, you got to be wearing the mask the whole time on the ferry. So this is where I'm like, okay, now this is a bit different because I thought they were going to be much more lax on it. Got to be wearing the mask the whole time on the ferry. Get over to Cozumel. Pretty dead. All the shop owners are like even more like coming, like trying to get you in. And they're being super nice. And it's so hard to... It's harder to ignore them when when everyone's coming at you and they're all being nice, and it's like, okay. And at that point, I'd kind of understood like, these guys are somewhat struggling. I was like, all right, whatever. Get to the hostel. Friends come in. We're hanging out, Cozumel. We kind of find out that, we go to this bar, and it's an American bar owner, and he's kind of gives us the lowdown on what's going on in Cozumel. And he's like, well, first off, Cozumel is, I want to say 75-80% like cruise line tourism, and there are 0 cruises. So everyone is really hurting there. Worse than Playa, worse than Cancun, worse than anywhere around there. He's like, it's mostly cruises, and then everything else is diving. So the hostel we were staying at, everyone there was diving. And once they found out we weren't diving, they're like, why are you here? And we were just like, we don't know. Like, just heard about it. Never been to Cozumel before. And so it's just, right now it's just diving, and it's usually just cruises and diving. So we go back to this bar, and the guy's like, hey, we got to shut down at 10. He's like, everything shuts down at 10. And we're like, okay, can we like get some beers to go? He's like, yep. So gives us some beers to go and sit on the pier. And about an hour later, the cops come, and they're like, hey, you gotta be like inside. Like, you can't even be outside past 10. And we're like, really? He's like, yeah, just make sure you go home right now. Like, you can't be outside. So we get back to the hostel, and people are just hanging out there, and we're kind of talking to people about it. And they're like, yeah, so the issue with all of this is Mexico doesn't have really a welfare system. So if you're not making money, you're not making money. Like, you can't, if you lose your job in the United States, at the very least, you can go on welfare and get some money to get some food and possibly pay your rent and whatever it is. They don't have that there. So because everyone's struggling so bad, the cops shut everything down at 10. And what they were explaining is like, if you're a Mexican citizen and you're out past 10, you're getting arrested. And it's because there's no reason you should be out past 10. Essentially, they're like, it's only people who are maybe looking to commit crimes. I didn't see anything sketchy the whole time I was there. It didn't seem threatening at all to me. But they're saying that to protect the tourists, they're closing everything down at 10. And this is just Cozumel. Let me explain this. Also, it didn't seem like anything was going on. So I think they got a pretty good handle on it. I think people understand, the vibe there. And so there wasn't really anyone out. It was a ghost town after 10, and we just kind of stayed in every night after that. So, after 10. And so that was pretty interesting. I haven't seen anything like that. The curfews were just to prevent desperate people from doing desperate things. So end up leaving Cozumel, going back to Playa del Carmen. And now this is the first time we're like on land. Things are much more normal here. There's some tourism. And what I found out while I was in Mexico, which I had no idea, is that whole Quintana Roo state and that whole coastline, which is pretty much all resorts and all tourism, 65% normally of their tourism is Mexicans, is people from Mexico City or from wherever in Mexico who want to go there for a week, and that's their vacation spot. And so that's something I didn't know. I thought it was going to be mostly Americans, Canadians, But no, they're saying normally 65% are Mexican citizens. So there's a lot of Mexican citizens going around. You're seeing Americans here and there, and the main differences that I've noticed, and so for some things, going right now is the best time to go, and for some reasons it's not. So all the temples are closed. So Chichen Itza, Coba, I believe the temples in Tulum are closed, and that's just because those are like the mass gatherings of tourists where you're gonna get tons of foot traffic from people there. So they're trying to close all those down. So they also were all the public beaches were closed. Sorry. There are public beaches, and I'll do the parentheses closed because we noticed people were just kind of on them anyways. I think if they got too many people, the police would shut it down, but they have caution tape, around it to where all the businesses that don't own the beach front property in front of them are their beach stuff is like their chairs and stuff that would be on the beach are all closed down. So all the public beaches are closed, but that doesn't mean you can't be on the beach. That means if you're in a resort or if you just pay to go to a place that owns the beachfront in front of them, then you can be on the beach. So we still got a lot of beach time in. Didn't get to do the temples, so the cenotes were really cool. You can do a lot of snorkeling. You can, there's like a lagoon we went to. You can go, we went and snorkeled with turtles, which was dope. A little turtle preserve that lots of sea turtles are in, and that was really cool. And like when you go and do that, you get their beach as long as you want. So you can be on the beaches. You just got to kind of ask around and see how that's going to work. One thing that is of note is that the peso is really weak right now. So when I was in Mexico last summer, the peso was 17 pesos is $1. Right now it's 22, almost 23. And it seems like it's trending it's getting weaker. So it could be 24. I don't know if it'll get much worse than that, but right now you're getting more bang for your buck than you did last year even. So quite a bit, like 30% or something. So 30% off everything is already a good deal. So what's really cool about not all the tourists is that you get all the solitude you want. You can head to these cenotes and there's not going to be as many people. When you do find the beaches, there's not that many people there. You can just kind of walk along the beach. And like I said, even the ones that were closed, outside of when we were in Isla Mujeres, they had people like kicking people off the beach. All the other ones, it was cool. It's like you can just do your thing. There's not enough people here unless there gets to be a bunch of people here. Then it's really not that big of a deal. The nightlife in Playa is affected, but you can still find things that are going on. So I was there for a while, and most of the time I was in Playa, and you kind of get the vibe that it's like Sunday's super dead. Like a lot of the businesses close on Sunday that are open every day. They'll close on Sunday, just because a lot of tourists leave by then. So many of the locals, a lot of the the Mexican tourists who are going back home from the weekend. And then you'll also get, the Americans or whoever else are down there just for a week or whatever it is. They usually will go home on a Sunday too. So Sunday's super dead. And then each day it kind of picks up a little bit more. But all the bars are still closing at 10 p.m. in Playa up until about Thursday. Then Thursday it's like 11. And then Friday it's 12. And then, or maybe Friday is like 2. And then Saturday is 2. But it's almost like each place closes at different times. So I think what's going on and the vibe I got was that it's supposed to close at 10, and then certain restaurants or bars bribe the police to stay open for 1, 2, 3, or 4 more hours. And that would seem to be the general consensus that I came up with by myself. So it's a consistent, you know what I'm saying? So we would be at maybe one bar or club or whatever it is, and then they would close at 11, so then we'd have to go to this other place, and they would maybe close at 12, then we'd go to a place that's open till 2. And so you kind of got to just ask around and see what time places close if you really want to stay longer, and then it kind of like funneled everyone down to like a few bars to then by the end of it, the bars were like, hey, to get in, you got to buy a bottle, and the bottles are $100 US. So it's like that was slightly annoying, but there's still nightlife going on, and you can find it, and it's there. So if that's what you're going for, there's not that many dance floors. So I think dance floors are technically banned, but dance floors kind of just sprung up, moving the chairs to the side, and there were dance floors you could find. But if you're going for nightlife, it's still there. It's just a little different. Then at one point went up to Isla Mujeres for a while, which is awesome. They were much more strict about the masks. And I guess, I don't know, I don't know if strict's the word, but they had like, peacekeepers in Hunger Games or whatever. They had those, but of like masks, like mask keepers, where they had people just walking around, just giving hand sanitizer to people and just making sure they had masks on. But then you leave and you can just take it off. It's not illegal to not have it on, I don't think. But, well, I think maybe it is illegal, but they won't ticket. You won't get ticketed as a foreigner, but locals might get ticketed. Because we did see police stopping people and talking to them and being like, hey, where's your mask? And getting angry about it. And like, oh, sorry, I had it in my pocket, or they didn't have it up or whatever. And so I'm guessing there is some ordinance on that. But here's a little thought I have on the mask. Now, they are quite annoying. And when you have to wear one for like an hour, like I did waiting for the ferry and on the ferry and whatever, that got real annoying. But when you have to wear a mask to like walk to your table or something, or to go into a store or whatever, people get pretty butthurt about that. And I do kind of get it. It's like, yeah, it's annoying. In the US, it's a violation of your freedoms, whatever. I guess. But also think about this. What annoys me a lot more than that is having to wear a shirt everywhere. And that's something that we've had to do forever. I would rather probably wear a mask and not a shirt. But that doesn't work that way. I've been having to you have to wear shirts and shoes. There's no shirt, no shoes, no service. I just don't see why people wouldn't be getting really pissed about that as a violation of your rights and your freedoms, but then they get pissed about the mask. I don't like wearing a mask, but if it allows me to travel, then I'll do it. If a business is like, hey, I want you to wear a mask in this store, then I guess you do it. I don't know if it should be a law, but it's not like we haven't been told what to wear anyways. So, I don't know. I guess that's just the way I see it. I would totally recommend going right now. I think right now is the best time to go to Mexico. It's super cheap. You can get the crazy deals on everything, even when you're like haggling for different things. Like they're much more willing to haggle. They need the money. They need the money more than Americans need the money, and Americans do need the money, but they don't have a safety net. And I think that's why I felt extra bad. It's like normally, like in Southeast Asia, like if you go to Indonesia, they're very aggressive with their trying to get you in their store. Not in like a intimidating way, but in like a more of an annoying way. And I found it very easy to ignore them and just kind of blow them off. But that's because travel and tourism was normal then. And if your business isn't succeeding and everything's normal, then it's like, well, just get a better business or get a better product or find something out. Like, figure it out. It's free market, This is the case where it's not their fault. They don't have a safety net. And it's something that it's their livelihood. And like, what are you going to do? I saw so many places that are closed down. Like, you see these shopkeepers and they're like, no one's going in there. And there's just this whole huge shop full of things. And I'm like, they're not making any money. And like, once they close, like, what do? I don't know. I guess that just made it harder to ignore them and act the way I normally act when I'm around people like that. So that's one thing. I felt a lot worse for them than I felt for, than I maybe feel for businesses at home. Now, I do feel bad for businesses at home. It's not their fault either. And there's a lot of really bad things that are happening, but no one's going to starve to death in the U.S. because of coronavirus. So take that for what it is. What else was that? Okay. Oh, yeah. We're talking about safety. So safety. I had to make a little notepad because, you going solo, you got no feedback. You just kind of got to keep going, and I don't want to miss much. But people were worried about the safety in Mexico, and I've heard a lot of different reasons why, but I can tell you this: the Quintana Roo state or province, I don't know what it is one of the safest, if not the safest place in Mexico to be, especially as a tourist. It's so safe. No one's gonna mess with you. Last year when we were in Bacalar, we met our Airbnb host. Was born in Oregon, was a U.S. Marine. When he got out of the Marines, moved to Mexico, married a girl. Then he joined the police force in Playa del Carmen. And we were kind of asking him about crime. And he's like, it's crazy. There's so much crime in Playa del Carmen if you're not a tourist. Like, even if it's not your tourist, he's like, there's gang activity and you'll never see it. They'll never mess with tourists. They'll never come close to that area where the tourists are really. Yeah, there's drug dealers there's 3 every block. And if you look like me, you're going to get offered drugs around every minute and a half. And that's super annoying. But like, there's no harm to be done. Yeah, maybe you get pickpocketed, maybe you get scammed or something. But other than that, there's not going to be violent crime there. So that's way safer than going to Omaha or going to Chicago for sure. Like, I'm way more scared traveling when I'm in Chicago trying to fly out of O'Hare and I got to get on the, whatever it is, the CTA or whatever it is, transit system there. Like, that's way more terrifying than anything I've really experienced traveling. So when people think like, oh, it's just Mexico, so it's dangerous, I'm like, no, it's not. Actually, it's way safer than probably where you live. So especially as a tourist in Playa, in Cancun, in Tulum, and generally just that whole area, you're so safe. No one's going to mess with you. You're not going to see the crime. You're not going to experience anything like that. So safety is not an issue. It's safer. It's cheaper. It's gorgeous. If you're working remote, it would be such a cool place to just settle down for a month or two and save money. If you can get out of like your rent and you can get rid of a lot of your expenses at home, it's so much cheaper to live there. You can rent a scooter for super cheap if you really want your transportation, or you can take the collectivos, which is nothing. It's like, it's so easy to get around, really safe, tons to do. So I would say right now, one of the best times to do it. If you plan on doing it, flights are cheap. Everything is looking up for Mexican tourism. And so that takes me to the next thing is like, what do I think the future of tourism is, and maybe tourism in Mexico or just tourism in general. And it's like a lot of places are open to Americans right now. A lot of places aren't, but there are more places than there were a month ago. Most of the Caribbean's open. You got Jamaica, and I mean, you can literally list off pretty much all those countries open for tourism. You can go to certain parts of Europe. You can fly to like Ireland or the UK. And then from there, maybe you can branch out. I sent a buddy a message asking him, who lives in Germany, asking him if Americans can, once they get in, can they get out to other places in Europe? But former Yugoslavia, which is like Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, Croatia, those places are all open to American tourists. You can fly into Turkey, which is a big hub. And then from Turkey, you can get over to those places as well if you don't want to stay in Turkey. So places seem to be opening up each month. There's a lot more. And like Belize is opening up. It opened up like a week ago. You're going to have a lot more options, which is hopefully going to drive the price down even more for all this tourism, because for a long time it was just Mexico that was open for Americans. So I think things are going to keep picking up. When I had a condo at the end of the trip, and we met a lady from Puerto Rico there who was just living there, and we were talking. I was like, man, yeah, it sucks that there's just not a lot of tourism. And she's like, oh, you should have seen this a month ago. There was literally like almost no one to here a month ago. She's like, it's so much better now. And she's like, in 1 month it's going to be even more and even more. And so I think in like when you get to November, and then the high season, which is December, January, February, tourism is going to be hopefully mostly back to normal. Who knows what's going to go on with the coronavirus? And if they get a vaccine, then I think essentially everything will open up, and relatively soon after that. So hoping that happens. I'm excited to potentially go back soon, to go somewhere else, either that or to somewhere else soon. And it's so cheap right now. There's so many deals. I've seen like resorts for 5 nights for like $500 for 2 people, something like that. Maybe not even, it might have been even cheaper than that. It might have been like $80 to $70 a night for 2 people total. It's pretty nuts. So you can find awesome deals out there if this is the time you want to go. It's super safe. They had way more precautions than the U.S. has, at least in Nebraska or in the Midwest. Every place you go into has hand sanitizer. A lot of them, most of them have sanitary mats where you got to step your feet on. They're all making you wear a mask when you go in to like when you go sit down. So if you're really worried about the coronavirus, Mexico is doing it really well. They're keeping people apart. The hotels are at half capacity or less. So, the restaurants are at half capacity or less. So they're removing tables, people are distanced, stuff like that. If you're worried about it, then you should go there. If you're not worried about it, then you should go there because it's really cheap. And, there's a lot going on, even though things are closed down, but you're going to have the solitude. You're going to have a lot of just opportunities to get pictures without people in them. And if you don't like to Photoshop people out like me, it makes it a little easier. And this is not sponsored by the Mexican Tourism Board, but if they want to do that, then what's good? Hola, sign me up in Spanish. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, that's kind of, I think that's about it. I don't really have that much more to say about this. The way home was nice. A lot of the lounges are open. If you got like a priority pass, the lounge was open in Cancun. It was super nice. The airports are a lot fuller than you'd think. I think I was pretty surprised with that. And even though there's no middle seats, it's like the planes seem full. They can only serve water and like peanuts on the flight. That's one thing I took a little issue with. That bothered me. I didn't like that. And yeah, you can't bring your own drinks onto the plane. Don't know what's going on with that. We need to get that figured out. But other than that, not too many qualms. I loved it. I want to go back. Found out like none of the gyms were open when I was down there. So thank the Lord that Playa has a Walmart about 3 blocks from where I was staying. So went to Walmart there and got some travel bands. So I got a couple workouts in. And then, it's like kind of back to normal. It was really nice. So I'd recommend it. That's my experience traveling to Mexico during the coronavirus. If you got any questions or anything about that, write it down below. I'll put all the stuff down there. Any way you want to reach me, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Zanga. What's that country dating site? That one too. I'm on that. So that's about it. Thanks for listening. It was a little bit shorter. I do prefer somebody else to be on this with me. This is not nearly as much fun without somebody to talk to. It's a lot shorter. It's like a 40-minute podcast, which is real short. So hopefully I'll have some guests on here soon. If not, then you'll see me just kind of rambling again about something. There's been some new evidence with the old Sam Squanch, so maybe I'll have to do a little something on that. But thanks for watching. Get connected down below. Like this. Subscribe to this. Subscribe on any of your podcast platforms. If you want to leave a 5-star review, do it. If you don't, you should think about it. And if it's not going to be 5 stars, then really don't do it. So that's about all I got. Thanks for listening. See you guys later.